In the ancient Hawaiian culture, the sacred term mana is known as the energy of power and strength.
How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't.
Different things you do in life can help you gain or lose mana. For instance, if you help a friend or think positive thoughts. But it is infused into all people and all things.
I'm all alone. Nothing I do helps me forget about you.
It is the spiritual undercurrent that drives all of life. Mana, that life force, the vigor, is something that I try to infuse into all of my YouTube videos, and it's a quality I indirectly teach in my coaching program. Many of my students have gone on to build in more authenticity, emotional connection, efficiency in their videos, and as a result, have garnered over 100,000 views on a single YouTube video. In addition though, we teach our students to build a robust business backend so that eventually their channel grows to $10,000 per month in revenue without using a single sponsorship. If you're someone who's committed to getting to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and building out a robust business backend on top of it, apply for coaching with me using the link in the description below. Change happens slowly. Improving your lot in life in particular seasons can seem impossible. You feel like you're living out the same day over and over again. You feel like you're grinding it out in the mud. But somewhere along the lines, you are getting better. And I can say this because when I look out and see the goals that I want to achieve in the next few years, I'm often very intimidated or even dejected by them. Sometimes I'm bummed out by the fact that it's been a few years and I still haven't made that short film project that I'd endeavored to make at some point in my career. But what helps me often regain a sense of faith that I can do these things that I think are really hard is looking back at the last 5 years and seeing how far I've come. Because if I reflect on how the last 5 years have gone, that version of me would have been absolutely astounded by some of the things I'm doing today. So I came up with 8 skills that really have paid off, and I'm not even a master at these skills yet, but I'm going to continue to work on them because I truly believe that they pay enormous dividends over the course of your life. So these are 8 skills that end up paying off forever. The first one is the skill of structuring your day and managing your energy. The fundamental of getting anything to work in your life is to know that any agenda or schedule that you set for yourself, you'll actually be able to execute. Back in the day, of course, I would set the intention of studying 6 hours a day or working out every day, but I never was able to follow through on my calendar, follow through on the schedule I'd set for myself. We all know the feeling of sitting on the couch and feeling tired, feeling stuck, and getting the sense like I should be doing this task in front of me, right? I should be working on this project, I should be going to the gym, I should at least be drinking water, and you end up just doing nothing. And that's because you don't know how to manage your energy. And this is a very personal skill, so there's no hard and fast rule on how you can get good at managing your energy, but it actually is the fundamental lesson in life. To learn the skill of directing yourself and knowing how you work inherently and knowing how to negotiate with yourself when you do feel stuck. Energy is the common denominator in all dimensions of our lives. So to maintain a powerful pulse in our lives, we've got to rhythmically spend and renew energy. Oftentimes you will end up feeling down on yourself for not doing a particular thing at a particular time, but really that's just a function of you not knowing how to structure your life and how to work with your mind to do what you're supposed to do. There's a book that I read a good time ago called The Power of Full Engagement, but the essence of it really talked about how managing our energy is far more important than managing our time. Because if you ask yourself to do something at 7 p.m. and your body is just not willing to do it, it's not gonna get done. It's also valuable to know how your mind works, to know how your emotions work. For instance, for me, throughout my entire life, people have often called me like a little bit bipolar. I'm not clinically bipolar, I'm pretty sure I'm not anyway, but people have maybe as a way of putting me down or just acknowledging that how often I'm at the mercy of my emotions. I can get to a place where I'm really happy with people. If someone feels like they're my friend, I'll be generous to them. And if I ever feel like things aren't going well in my life, it's very easy for me to get grumpy I think, far more rapidly than another person. You might say this is unmanly of me, it's overly emotional, but the truth is, it has its strengths. One of the reasons why I became a decent actor and a semi-successful YouTuber is because it's easy for me to put dramatic emotions on display, and that's often very watchable. But you also have kind of ways your brain works, ways you think, things that will objectively make you feel down, and then things that will lift you up. And so it's tough because we all have heroes. We've got people we compare ourselves to, and we think we should be like another person. We watch someone's daily routine video and think, damn, like, why can't I wake up at 4 a.m. like this other person? But that is why it's very valuable to know how you work inherently, how your mind works and how your energy works. And that's not a problem that I can solve for you in just a YouTube video. You've got to actually reflect very slowly, very messily through your life and figure out where your energy goes in responses to certain scenarios. A friend of mine, he worked in sales, and he once mentioned that when he loses a big sale that he was close to getting, he knows for a fact he's gonna be down for 2 days. Like, he knows he's just gonna lose 2 days, and he just has to kind of plan things out in advance and just like deal with what his mind is gonna go through. And then after 2 days, he will snap out of it and he will feel renewed and motivated again. The same was true for me back in the day, where I would upload a YouTube video, and because I loved that video so much and I put so much of my soul into it, I would feel completely tied up in that video. And so it was a slow learning process for me to realize that the day that an important upload goes up, a YouTube video that I really poured my soul into, that I really cared about, I need to plan a lot of things that day. Like, I can't just upload willy-nilly. I need to be in a place where I'm away from my phone and I'm really busy, because other YouTubers would know this. You get into a place where you're just reading the comments and you're checking the views, not even every 15 minutes, every 3 minutes, because you love the video so much, and every second you want to see what people are doing. On top of that, cabin fever is a very real thing. I think across this country, at least, everyone is going through some kind of neuroses where they will feel irritable or restless because they're isolating themselves for prolonged periods of time. This is something that I noticed that it was in direct contrast when I lived in India for like a month and a half. It was a lot easier to be connected to other people because it was always warm. You stepped outside at 8 a.m. People were waiting in line to grab, their breakfast food. And there was a real sense of just, you're surrounded by people. Whereas, at least life in the Midwest, it's very easy. In fact, it's kind of the norm for people to isolate themselves for long periods of time. And that's not healthy for you. Even if you're an introvert, being alone for long periods of the day is very bad for your energy levels. And it's something that needs to be understood and managed, because it's super easy to implode on yourself. And then before you know it, you spent like 2 full days in your apartment, just walking around in your underwear, like not getting anything done. You have to be able to listen to yourself on a moment-to-moment basis and figure out what is best for you. Some quick tips that help me in this regard of structuring my day and managing my energy is 1, planning my entire day around fitness. Like, I plan my day around my workouts, and I can be cruel enough to the rest of my schedule to say, if the workout doesn't get done, or if like my fitness, my health is not prioritized, then I'm actually willing to cancel almost anything to make that happen, just because I know very little works without exercise. The second is to find inspired locations in life where I'm forced to be and interact with other people. This became especially important when I became a full-time YouTuber and a full-time entrepreneur, basically, because there's no accountability. I could just be alone for a week at a time. That would be on me. It's very easy to implode in this career. And the third is a little bit more heady, but it's this idea of infusing my entire life with a sense of belief and faith, like forcing myself to consider that there should be faith and beauty in my life. Telling myself that I'm gonna make today incredible. I'm going to invoke beauty in this day and live it as an inspired adventure. Sometimes you just have to tell yourself, I'm not just gonna let this day pass by. Like, this is a chapter in the movie of my life, and it's a good fucking movie. I'm gonna make it great. But the reason I've belabored this skill so much is because it's very personal and it matters tremendously. The second skill then is seeping fitness, nutrition, and sleep into your emotional knowledge. Sometimes the things I say come out kind of funny, but basically, this is yet another way of bringing significance to the first idea. The idea of managing your energy and increasing it, because it is really the fundamental truth of life, your energy levels. There is a level of skill that needs to be cultivated with fitness, nutrition, and even as something as basic as sleep. And even though all the information is out there, common sense is not always common practice when it comes to fitness, nutrition, and sleep. It's just no longer intuitive because so much of our life is not tied to the natural world. That's why when someone like Andrew Huberman says you should get sunlight in your eyes the first thing in the morning, this should feel like really intuitive insight, but it's kind of compelling. It's actually a deep piece of intel for people to have someone like him, like a professor, telling them the importance of getting sunlight in their eyes because it's actually easy today to not look at the sun. And so this is actually a continued journey, and I'm not going to push too hard with this point in this video, but the truth is, when it comes to understanding something deep within you so that it's not even conscious knowledge anymore, it's something you just live with, it can take years to get good at things like fitness or your nutrition. Last year when I started powerlifting, I thought that was the only way. So if you're getting stronger every day, then that's a sign of fitness. But then you discover that relative strength also matters. What about your VO2 max? Or perhaps your stress resilience? You know, whenever I take an ice bath or get in the sauna and push myself with it, I'm building a level of resilience and tolerance. And that also is a part of my well-being and my fitness. When it comes to nutrition, there's so many philosophies around food. Some people are vegan. People like Paul Saladino say seed oils are completely bad, and most foods that we eat, like even almond butter, isn't good for you. So understanding fitness and nutrition and what it means for you to keep your energy levels high and to feel good, it often takes a long time to understand that, and it's absolutely worth learning. I would even argue this is true for sleep because people take years to figure out what helps them sleep well, what makes them feel good at night. You know, oftentimes my Oura Ring score is like pretty low. It's in like the mid 70s or even lower than that. And many days I sleep 6.5 or 7 hours, but I feel pretty energetic these days. You know, maybe it's partially because I'm on several weeks of NoFap at this point. Different things affect how well you feel that day and how energetic you feel, and it's often very personalized. With these two principles out of the way, the third skill that I want to talk about is perhaps far more practical, and that is writing and speaking. I would argue one of the biggest leverages that carries weight today, perhaps the most important skill of the 21st century, is your ability to write well and to speak well. I've studied a lot of movies, I've studied pieces of content online, things that blow up, TikToks, YouTube videos, Instagram carousels, reels, posts. Anything outside of music is driven by words. Even music, often the lyrics are very valuable, but music is the one thing that is perhaps more sophisticated than just writing. But the majority of things, especially when it comes to making money and having an impact in the world of work today, your ability to write and speak have gotten more valuable than ever. I remember back in the day when I had something like 30,000 subscribers, my dad said, all you do on camera is buck. That's his way of saying, like, all you do is talk. Like, what's the value of all that? But I think even he at this point would admit that it goes quite far in today's world. Your ability to share your ideas and share things very well, it carries a dramatic amount of weight. And when it comes to writing and speaking, there are 4 qualities that I try to do as well as possible, and when I work with others, try to cultivate in them. And that is the sense that your writing should be authoritative, authentic, emotionally connected, and efficient. So let's break each of these down. The first is authoritative. That means you sound like you know what you're talking about. There's been research done. Either you've read books, talked to the experts, you've done the work yourself and you've become the expert yourself, or you've gone out and you've had some experiences and you've internalized them well, and you're able to share those experiences with a sense of authority. Authority is that quality of being like, oh, this guy knows what he's saying. You can trust that he comes across as someone worth listening to. The second quality is authentic. Authenticity means you sound real. When you write, when you speak, it seems like a genuine conversation between two people. It doesn't sound like you're just preaching or lecturing to a big group. You see this in a lot of people who are making content. It sounds very much like they're not speaking to one person. You would never talk like that in real life if you were grabbing a beer with another person. You would never say like, oh, you want to grow in real estate? Well, here are 4 ways that you should. But for some reason, when people write and when they speak online or present themselves online, they stop being real because for some reason, it's very hard to let yourself be vulnerable and be the real version of you. And part of the success of many successful YouTubers and many successful writers is their ability to display who they are and not hide who they are, no matter what the size of the audience is. Authenticity also carries weight visually. So for instance, in my YouTube coaching program, I will always ask my students to make their expression in thumbnails be the real feeling, the real way they feel about a situation or a title, rather than something you would see on some channels where they're like, making really dramatic faces and all that. I ask them to make the face that is actually accurate to the emotion because it carries some level of authenticity and depth and actually makes it more clickable. The third quality, emotional connection, is very similar to authenticity, but it's all about being present and being tapped into your own emotions and your actual sentiment on how you feel about a subject while you talk about it. And lastly, efficiency. This just means that your writing is delivered as simply as possible with as much clarity as possible. If something can be expressed in 6 words words rather than 11. You should usually go with the short version. A very important factor of good writing that people don't know about is having an active voice. So a simple way of translating like active voice is, instead of saying the package was delivered by the mailman, you say the mailman delivered the package, because it's active. The mailman is the subject of that sentence and he is doing the delivering, so he should come first. And there's more that goes into good writing than that, but that's a great base to start. Efficiency also shows up when you speak. So when you're delivering a speech or you're talking, there shouldn't be that many ums and uhs. I mean, ideally they get cut out, or you've rehearsed or internalize your ideas so well that they don't show up at all. That's efficiency. This brings us to the fourth skill of the modern world that pays enormous dividends, that pays off forever, and that's sales. This is a tough one for me to bring into this list, but I have to admit that learning a little bit of sales, I wish I would have done that much sooner in my life, because everything is sales. Dude, even hooking up with that girl is sales on some level. Sales is like training for performance rather than aesthetics, because if you can learn to sell a product or sell yourself and like close the deal, you know, always be closing, then effectively in making that happen, you've learned how to be a great listener. You've learned how to demonstrate empathy in conversations. You've learned how to ask questions and pinpoint for problems and be the source of a solution to a problem. You've also learned how to seize on an opportunity. And sales really is the amalgamation of a lot of different skills into one. One of my great regrets in starting out as an actor is that I didn't think like a salesman, because if I had, I would have tried to see myself as the person who provides a solution to all these casting directors and agents. Really, I was just thinking about myself though. My whole mindset back in the day was like, please accept me, please accept me. Hey, do you want to maybe take a look at my headshot? When I should have thought about how I could provide value and how I could solve problems for these people. And it would have still been tough, but it would have been a much more fruitful way of looking at the things I was working on. I think it's also important to learn how to sell yourself and be comfortable, slowly build up the comfort of charging prices for things and charging high prices. Everyone wants to make money, but you almost have to internally accept a certain amount of money and accept how much money you can take from someone. There was a time when asking for $4,000 for a brand deal, let's say from Athletic Greens, who's a sponsor, you know, it's a product I take and it's a brand I've worked with in the past. Asking them for $4,000 instead of $3,000 was something that would cause me like a deep amount of anxiety. Even though my last video for them might have gotten 300,000 views in a week, I still would feel scared to ask for more money because I didn't know how to sell myself and I didn't know how to build up my value in a way to charge more prices. One thing I ask all my YouTube coaching clients is, if you had to sell something for $100,000, like I forced you to sell something for $100,000 and you actually had to deliver value on it, we're not out here trying to get coffee Zilla'd, like you're actually trying to deliver value. What would that product be? And it just gets the mind thinking. The interesting thing about learning sales is that you realize you have the capacity to increase your values, increase your prices by just listening and learning how you can solve someone's problem. And it will have a translated effect on many facets of your life if you can learn a bit of sales. The fifth skill is courage. It's kind of a strange one, but courage is deeply valuable. And the opportunity to be courageous reveals itself all the time, every day. And it's something that you can work your way into being able to do. Like, what is courage? Basically, if you 100% in your mind and body don't want to do a thing because it feels scary or it doesn't feel right, you do it anyway. You just somehow get yourself to do it. One example for me, this is a very personal one, but a very tough one. At some point in my dating history, I had been seeing someone for a couple of months and I wanted to call things off because essentially this person wanted to go all the way with me, like marriage and kids, and I didn't see them as that person for myself. Forcing myself to tell them was an act of courage. I mean, it sounds kind of pathetic when I put it out in words like that now, but it is true, you know, that was a discomforting thing. It wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do, and it felt fruitful, it felt productive. There's so many aspects to existence, whether it's going up and asking someone for a date, or asking for a promotion, asking for a raise, even just introducing yourself to the right person at a networking party. Sometimes it's even an act of courage to like give a stranger a compliment. It's the strangest thing ever, but like choosing to like maybe sit on the subway and knowing that you could be a source of good vibes, sharing good energy in a place where there's a lot of quiet, even that can be an act of courage. Perhaps knowing that you should quit your job and take your business full time, or perhaps knowing that you should actually keep your job and work on your business on the side. Like so many aspects of our life would benefit from courage, because courage is like that tipping off point of just taking the leap and doing what needs to be done, the thing that is the most scariest. For me in this regard, what has helped me cultivate more courage this year is cold showers, because I've gotten back into cold showers and I take one every morning and even one every evening now. And the funny thing about those is that on some level, they don't get easier because it just hurts just as much. And especially when you wake up first thing in the morning, you don't exactly feel very sharp and put together. So when you take that cold shower, it's frightening how cold it can be. And then the second thing, this was a huge breakthrough for me last year, is that I went skydiving. And I'm someone who's desperately afraid of heights, to the point where even as I'm like talking about it right now, my hands are getting sweaty again. I actually don't even know how I got myself to do that. But what that experience taught me is that when you slowly but surely somehow force yourself to take on more acts of courage, it becomes a part of who you are. Jocko Willink had this great line about how you can't ever fake being courageous. You can't ever pretend, because as soon as you fake it, but you do it anyway, you've actually just sincerely become courageous. And while it's still hard, it slowly becomes a part of what you do. And I promise you, all of the quantum leaps in your life, those large surges forward, will be associated with some amount of courage being exerted. The sixth skill that pays enormous dividends is creating systems around the goals that you set. Around every New Year's, the idea of creating systems to achieve your goals like just takes over the YouTube algorithm once again, and I see a bunch of videos every year about systems, not goals, taking off, the James Clear way of thinking. But it is actually super useful to realize that most of your days in life, even if you're living your dream, most of your days you are going to end up doing the same things. And the key difference between two very different lives, a very successful life and a non-successful life, is realizing and deciding the things you're going to do every single day. Alex Hormozy, for instance, had this great line: the difference between a great physique, like a six-pack abs physique, and like a normal body or even an overweight person is just a couple of meals. Because most of us, we end up eating the same meal every day, the same handful of meals, we eat the same foods. And so just changing out what those handful of foods are, what those handful of meals are, is the difference between a great physique and an average one. And the same thing goes with so many results in life. The one quote that I recite to myself every single day, it also is the quote that is like the centerpiece of my app, is success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. So realizing for yourself what those things are, what your system is everything. In some ways, the goal you set, no matter what your goal is, it doesn't matter that much. What matters is what you do day in and day out. And there are two things that are involved in this: your ability to set goals that make sense for yourself in the phase of life that you're in right now, goals that are definitely achievable. They're just on that cusp between ordinary and exciting. They're not too crazy. And then the second thing is like your KPIs, like the things you're going to do day in and day out. You're going to live out the same day every single day. Chris from First Man has this great line: do the same 5 things every single day for 5 years and you'll get to where you need to go. That's entirely true. Like that is exactly it. And the system is basically you deciding what those things are that you do every day. And if you can figure those out and actually work them into your schedule, get yourself to do them, it's going to pay off for a long time. The seventh skill that I think is absolutely worth working on and learning, this is a very modern invention, is digital marketing, email marketing, outreach, funnels, basically online marketing in general. Because if anyone is going to get to your products or services, in today's world, it's probably going to be online. And it's probably going to be as a result of creating content, writing emails, and doing things that lead to the products that you sell. I'm actually not going to go into this point deeply because it should be a video of its own, but I got into digital marketing at the age of 24, 25. I started studying it for the first time, having been a chemistry major and then working as a chemistry teacher for the first few years of my adult life. I think it was actually a video by Improvement Pill back in the day where he said, digital marketing is the skill to learn. And the meaning of digital marketing has changed over the years because in my opinion now, digital marketing is almost exclusively just making content, or you do paid ads. But essentially, marketing in terms of like commercials or billboard ads is really not relevant anymore. The only thing that is marketing now is the creation of content, the creation of Instagram Reels, videos, podcasts, all that stuff. And then your ability to write emails or just learn good outreach. It's super important. Even if you're a doctor, even if you're a mechanic, learning this skill is deeply, deeply important because at least half of our lives, if not more, maybe 50 to 60% of our lives now are related to being online. The last skill that matters is storytelling. I've noticed a lot of content going up lately related to AI, ChatGPT, and basically the takeover of these technologies that are rendering human stories perhaps less relevant. But the one thing that will always be there that infuses, I guess, humanity and life into things is to tell stories. I'm not sure why storytelling is so deeply connected to the human experience, but this notion of the group sitting around the campfire telling the story is pretty powerful. And just like in sales, there's a lot that goes into storytelling that captures a lot of different skills. But in general, here are some rules that I follow. Whenever you're telling a story, as much as you can, raise the stakes, get vulnerable, give people a reason to get to the end, which is to say, give it an arc and a finality, and then make the ending awesome. If you can make the ending of that story amazing, then that's what people remember. You know, The Dark Knight would not be The Dark Knight. In fact, so many amazing movies, even like Heat, would not be what they are without that ending being like just the perfect personification of the themes in that idea. So storytelling has gotten really valuable. If you want to grow on YouTube, I of course have a YouTube Academy where we teach things like storytelling. Even for people who want to make comedy videos, learning storytelling and learning good writing carries enormous weight. Even if you want to freaking find love in real life, your ability to tell stories is what's going to get the girl or the guy, at least in some part. So learning what is one of the most fundamental aspects of basically humans relating to each other is something that's going to pay off forever. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nikhil. This channel is a combination of lifestyle challenges, video essays, comedy sketches, and personal development videos for creatives like this one. If that's something that appeals to you, then consider subscribing. If you want to connect with me further, I've got a newsletter that I put out once a week. I've also got an Instagram where I occasionally will share my ideas on cinematography, productivity, how to build an online business, how to chase your dreams, stuff like that. And lastly, if you want to improve your habits and make 2023 the year where you really do honor the systems you create for yourself, I have an app, a habit tracker app that I also use every single day. It's called Transmuted. It's got some very beautiful features and is about to go through a major upgrade. I truly think it's the best habit tracker on the platform, and honestly, it serves me in a major way. It's going to be a big part of my hopefully continued growth this year. But with that being said, for those of us who invest in those skills and keep getting better in those skills that pay us back, that help us build the lives that we want for ourselves, to us I say, greatness is coming. We'll catch you next time.